wow.
That's for that, remember?
I have to ask Kathy about that one.
Okay, so that's fine. It says
All right.
it's off. That means
Okay,
the podium.
guys ready? Do we have?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I call the meeting of the City Council of the City of Pacifica to order for June 23rd, 2014.
Where the chief is?
Roll call, please.
What was that?
Councilmember O'Neill,
Here.
Councilmember Stone,
Here.
Councilmember Degree,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Irvin,
Present.
Mayor Nyhart is excused.
Yes.
Feedback?
Salute to the flag will be led by Councilmember Mike O'Neill.
What is that noise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a closed session report?
Portable action?
Okay, thank you. This brings us to the consent agenda. If anyone from the public would like to speak on items on the consent calendar, you may do so now. Seeing no one, I will bring it back to council. Are there any comments, or do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
I need to make a statement about the minutes.
Okay, you want to do so now?
Ooh, is that me? Yes.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
needed to make a correction to the minutes. When a council person votes no on something, the reason for it can be given. And so I just asked the city clerk to move my statement of why I voted nay to the proper place on the agenda. We didn't change any wording. We just moved from page 42. In the center, it mentions Councilmember Degree stated that the way it was written in the report, that some of the statements were going beyond general intentions and made it sound like the Clara Creek project was specific and ready to go as acceptable. So it just simply moved that up to. Is that okay?
Okay. Please vote.
I think we have to change the motion to as amended, don't we?
Did staff understand
Yes.
that? Okay.
Do we have to change the motion to as amended?
I think you do. I think you do, yes.
Okay.
So I'll just
Go ahead.
change my motion, and I'll move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second it as amended.
Okay, please vote. Okay, we now have a special presentation. Oh, I'm sorry, 4-0. That passed 4-0. We now have a special presentation and proclamation for Parks and Recs Month. This provides an important opportunity to recognize the many benefits our programs provide and demonstrates our strong appreciation for these programs within our community. I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation. Whereas parks and recreation make lives and communities better now and in the future, and whereas it is established through statewide public opinion research, 98% of California households visit a local park at least once a year. 2 in 3 households visit a park once a month. 50% of households participate in an organized recreation program, and most park use is with family and friends. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities and are an integral part of communities throughout the country, including Pacifica. And whereas parks provide access to the serenity and the inspiration of nature and outdoor spaces to play and exercise, and parks preserve and protect the historic, natural, and cultural resources in our community. And whereas recreation fosters human development, providing positive alternatives for children and youth during non-school hours to reduce crime and mischief, thereby helping children and youth develop and grow into healthy and productive adults. And whereas parks and recreation offer places, spaces, and programs to facilitate social connections, human development, therapy, the arts, and lifelong learning. And parks and recreation strengthens community image, sense of place, and increases cultural unity. And whereas parks and recreation provides opportunities for directed and self-directed activities which encourage healthy movements. And thousands of Pacifica children, adults, and seniors benefit from the wide range of services, facilities, maintenance, and programs, including the Pacifica Skate Park, Adventure Camp, Leaders in Training Education, aquatics programs at Brink Pool, Frontierland Park, Pacifica State Beach and Recreation, Trail along our coast, recreational classes, senior services, and child care provided by Pacifica's Parks, Beach, and Recreation and the Public Works Department. And the City of Pacifica urges all its residents to recognize that Parks and Recreation enriches the lives of its residents and visitors, as well as adding value to the community's homes and neighbors. Therefore, be it resolved, the City of Pacifica hereby proclaims that parks make life better. And the month of July 2014 is Park and Recreation Month, and in doing so urges all citizens to join us and enjoy our parks and recreational opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Council. I'm Mike Perez. I'm the Director of Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Department. I want to thank you for the proclamation. Throughout the country, July is being celebrated as Parks and Recreation Month, and on behalf of the Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Department, our Parks Division and Public Works, and our Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission, we would like to ask folks to join us in July and throughout the summer in general, as we have many recreational opportunities in the community through our department programs, activities, and the parks, the beaches, trails, and events. A few things of note that are going on this summer. Our senior services are kicking off the summer by exploring San Francisco Zoo in July. They're visiting a cable car museum as well. And of course, they're going to be having their rummage sale July 18th and 19th. That's from 9 to 2 at the community center. And all those proceeds raise benefit senior services program. Our child care services will be going on field trips to Blackberry Farm in July and to Cole Canyon in August. They're also having some special presentations by Wild Things, which is a great animal show, and the kids get to interact with all the animals, and there's usually really great pictures of humongous snakes and the kids, and very nice. We also have at Brink Pool, we have 2 sessions of our Wet and Wild Water Camp, which is a very unique program still, July 14th to 18th and August 4th to 8th. Every day of the week, including Saturdays and Sundays this summer through August 22nd, from 1 to 3, you can swim at Brink Pool, recreation swim, 1 to 3. And every Wednesday from June 25th, that's this week, through the 20th of August, there will be free recreation swim for kids, and they're sponsored by local organizations and businesses. Just would like to recognize them. We have Rod Musio, electric contractor, Dr. Thomas Chiropractic, Seabowl, Pacifica 76 Station, Refresh Nail Care, Blyle Elevator, MISPA, Granite Electric, Rotary Club, the Pacific Alliance Club, Fairmont Homeowners Improvement Association, Kibblewhite Precision Machinery, and the Women of the Moose and Safeway. We also have something we started last summer at the pool, which is 2-for-1 Tuesdays for children, starting tomorrow, and we'll continue on the 19th. So you can bring a buddy, and one of you gets in free. Summer swim lessons also have beginnings and have started, and the openings are there for folks. Youth programs all started today at our adventure camp. We have programs for 6 to 12-year-olds that run for the next 8 weeks. Fairmont Recreation Program, located at Esther Hall Neighborhood Center, is open Monday through Friday, 11 to 4. And in addition, we have a lot of planned other off-site special excursion trips that include having all these kids come down to the pool. We've got scholarships for folks to learn how to swim. We're going to be taking local trips to Lindemar Beach, San Pedro Creek, various parks, and we're also participating with Pacifica Libraries in the summer reading extravaganza celebrated. And they're going to be coming out to some of our centers, and we're having a big party at the end of the summer, the Imagination Playground up at Fairmont Park. Summer's a really great time to get outside and get active and enjoy the opportunities for self-directed activities, such as just taking a walk or a ride on the beach multipurpose trail, enjoying an afternoon in one of our local parks, such as Frontierland Park or the Roy Davies Playground at Fairmont Park, or spending time at our beaches or the pier right here. I'd really like to invite everybody to come out and enjoy all we have to offer in the city, in our community, and through our departments. And as you all know, very soon, 4th of July is coming up. I gave you all an invitation tonight, council members. The 4th of July will be celebrated from 11 to 4 at Frontierland Park this year. It's the 40th anniversary of that celebration, actually. And for all those of you who like to run, you can get up early and meet me at the community center for a 5-mile run. 9 a.m. we have the annual Rocket Run, which is a really great event and a great way to start your day. I want to thank all of our hardworking and dedicated staff for all of their efforts in planning and preparing the summer, and we really want to invite the community to join us for a 2014 Summer of Fun and Adventure.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike, for everything. And we'd like to hear from council, so...
Mike, thanks for everything that you guys do. Thank you, and please pass our thank you along to your staff. And this is really entering in the real busy, fun season for you. I know you have a lot of different events, and of course, 4th of July picnic coming up. Thank you for the invite that you personally dropped off to us. That's always a great community event. And now that my kids are getting older, I see how much you guys do from that level. So thank you for everything, as well as, of course, senior services that you guys also provide. Thank you.
Do you want to go ahead, Susan?
Ditto, thank you. It's a very full agenda. Really appreciate all the hard work everybody does.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, as a recreation major, I know how much planning and everything else goes into actually, putting the event on, the marketing, the figuring out the costs, and especially with us that, we want at least to break even. So I got to say thank you for doing that job. And it's also actually our Park and Rec is almost our social welfare. If you count the senior citizens, the Meals on Wheels and all that fall under the purview of Rec and Park. So it's actually part of our social services safety net in Pacifica. So thank your staff and you for doing that.
And Mike, I'd just like to say thanks so much for all you do. I grew up in Pacifica, and I remember every year looking forward to getting that catalog and going to the swim, the swim sessions and all the many, many programs that you offer. And it really defines Pacifica in such a big way and provides such a great quality of life for our children here as well as the adults. So you're doing a beautiful job as well. Your staff is as well doing an incredible job. So thank you for all you're doing. You really make a difference in Pacifica, and we're grateful. So thank you
very much. And I did mention in some of my speaking notes here, but I do want to make sure we don't pass over all the hard work from our Public Works Department. There's a lot of passive recreational opportunities for folks that we don't know who they are, but they enjoy our trails and our beaches and our parks, and maybe they're not signed up to a program, but our staff does a great job of making sure that the places that they do go to visit are enjoyable and safe and well maintained. And so specifically, at the beach, at the parks, on our trails, and they enjoy that. That's a real testament to the work from our Public Works Department.
Great, thank you. Why don't you come on up and... Oh, wait, we have a question.
Can I ask a question, Mike?
Sure.
One time, the city had a swim program where our staff was trained to help people with disabilities. Do we still have that?
Yeah, we have that available on reference, the adapted aquatics, so people can, request that. And we have someone on staff who's trained in that.
Not very many cities have that.
Right, correct.
Very nice. Why don't you come on up and get your proclamation? We now have a public hearing approving user fees and charges for fiscal year 2014-2015. Staff report, please.
Good evening, council members. You have at your desk a memo from me pointing out a typographical error that was made in the master fee schedule. We forgot to increase the hourly rate for one of our planning encroachment permits. As part of the budget process, we go through all the fees that the city charges for its different activities during the year. We are requesting increases in about half of the fees that are in your master fee schedule before you. In the master fee, the increases were all covered by the Wildan fee study that was done 2 years ago. None of the fees were raised above what they recommended, and in most cases the fees were raised approximately 3%, which is what we see as cost of living and the increase in benefit costs for the city, for our staff. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I was wondering, I was looking over the Oh, actually, no. I'm going to hold off for now. I'm sorry. I'm okay. Mike?
I just have a couple questions. I notice you have one here under city clerk. You have retaping of records using city equipment with a standby attendant 45 and not using city equipment with standby attendant 45. How come they're the same price? If you're actually having personnel standing there, wouldn't that be more expensive? Or are you just real cheap, Kathy?
We have never done that, so that's a very good question.
I mean, I'm wondering
This
what
came out
is...
of the fee study, but I really don't know why, but I can find out.
No, I'm just curious, using city equipment, what equipment is, are they doing? I mean...
Well, it would be the transcription equipment, probably.
Okay. Another question I had was taxi cab permits and taxi cab inspections. Does this cover the Lyft and the Hubers of the world, or is that still like in litigation in somewhere?
I'm sorry, Councilmember O'Neill, the city attorney was calling my attention to something, another question. Would you restate your question?
Oh,
We
sure.
can ask the staff
The
person to come
taxi
up.
cab and permits, taxi cab inspections, does that cover Lyft and Huber? Or Uber?
Uber.
Uber?
I'm not
U-B-E-R.
I'm not familiar with that term, but taxi cab permits, I believe, are overseen by the police department. Am I correct?
Well, basically, they're a new phenomenon where it's private cars and the people are paid per head.
Oh,
And I know there's a lot of
Yes.
controversy over, are they cabs, are they not? And then there was a liability issue up in San Francisco when one of them hit somebody.
Yeah, so the police chief just stepped to the microphone. Maybe he can offer some insights.
That hasn't been brought to us as of yet. The Lyfts and, what's the other, Uber, I believe it's called, are becoming obviously more popular, especially in the larger cities. I believe they're running some of those in San Francisco. But our fees have been aimed directly at your typical taxi companies, yellow cab, those that are doing business within the city of Pacifica. So as part of that registration with the city, they have a vehicle inspection fee that they have to go through, and that's what the vehicle fee is for. So we'll look at the vehicle, and there's certain criteria that they have to meet as far as the maintenance of the vehicle in part to ensure that they're providing a safe vehicle for their customer. And then the other fees that we do are the background fees on the taxi drivers and the taxi companies. Some of those companies are, the drivers are the owners, and then some of them you have owner with multiple drivers. So we'll do backgrounds on each of the drivers and make sure that they're licensed, insured, those types of things. But as of yet, we haven't ventured into that Lyft world, if you will. Just hasn't become an issue for us at this point.
Okay. I was just curious if we were covering them. And then I noticed that we have a fee of $200 a day to use Ingrid Lacey's field. I was just curious, what does the city do at Ingrid Lacey Field that we charge $200 a day? Is that the light standards?
I believe that's a PB&R fee, and maybe Mike Perez could come up to the podium and speak to that.
Might be. Fog Fest, maybe?
Mike Perez, Parks, Beach and Recreation Department. So the fees there, those are from when we did have softball. And I suppose the idea would be if we were to engage in a softball program again, we would have those fees still. And we haven't had softball at the field for a long time.
Oh,
But
okay,
it
so-
doesn't specify the field either.
So it's kind of like re-recording with staff, without staff, if they show up, we have a fee for it?
Well, that I believe, I don't have it in front of me, the $200 I believe is the tournament fee, but I'm not positive if someone has that right in front of them, what that says.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just was curious because, having been on the school board, the school district's charging a fee and then we're charging a fee, but what are we charging for? That's all.
We don't have a program there, so we don't, if we were to have a program for softball, and it doesn't specifically say where, we would probably start with that fee, but that's, we haven't had a softball since, I think, 2002 maybe. So,
Okay.
could eliminate that, or, I guess that,
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
And then this is something else maybe just to bring up, is I had a conversation with George White, and I noticed that every time the Planning Commission has a meeting, we get a full set of the agenda, but we also get copies of all the blueprints. And to me, I remember those blueprints were like $200 or $300 a piece to the applicant. And I was just wondering, do we need to agendize to see if the rest of the council wants it, or can I just, at $200 or $300 a piece, unless it's appealed, I don't really think I need the blueprints.
I think that might just be direction that I can take, and then maybe on request, we can provide those blueprints, but perhaps change the practice and not include them going forward.
Okay, so we'll just each contact you and let you know.
If that, unless I see some other difference of opinion, but
Maybe it's not a conversation. My opinion is maybe not a conversation for this moment in this agenda item, and if that's something that we want to bring forward, that we should talk about more.
okay.
Okay. Councilmember Degree?
Oh, I didn't put that light on.
Okay.
Must be from before.
Okay, I just had a quick question. So again, the estimate is that we're looking at these user fees every 6 or 7 years. That's what we were told before. Is that still what you're considering, or are we going to be looking at this annually?
My understanding is that before last year, we'd been looking at them on that kind of a schedule every 7 years, 6 or 7 years. It's more standard to look at these every year.
Okay, that makes sense.
To make sure that we're staying on top of increases that we need to either pass on, or perhaps new fees we need to charge, or, as I think Councilmember O'Neill just found, one we should take off the list.
Right.
So I think it's good practice to look at the fees and charges every year.
Great,
It's part of the budget.
Thank you. And this year, with the corrected changes so far, what was the total amount that we've saved annually this year?
I think you mean what additional revenues we've actually will be bringing in?
We're anticipating, yes.
About $150,000.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah. And also, I think that, I'm not sure that Mr. Carmichael mentioned, but only about half of the fees actually were increased. So it wasn't every single fee. It was only about half of them.
Great. Thank you very much for the work you did on this. Appreciate it. Okay. I'm going to open it up now to public comment. So the public hearing is now opened. But if anybody would like to say anything, I'd welcome it. But I don't have any cards currently. Seeing that no one has any comments.
Lady standing.
Wait, there's somebody standing up back there.
Oh, wait, you fill out, did you fill out a yellow? Okay, why don't you come up to the front and
Where is it? Oh, he has it.
state your name and... Hi, thank you.
Nancy, you can pull that down.
Thanks.
My name is Nancy Bailey. I've been a resident of San Carlos for about 36 years. Your presentation to the Parks and Rec impressed me. When my children were younger, we took advantage of everything the park the city had to offer in recreation. Now I'm old and I'm frail and my health is not that good. And I noted in your presentation, in your speech, that you mentioned the skate park, but you didn't mention the dog park. It's systematically being closed. You have created a hostile environment, and biggest part of that environment is Mr. Johnson. I read in a paper article several weeks ago that there was a subcommittee being appointed, and we thought about, people in the park thought about what we could do to let City Council and the subcommittee know that Mr. Johnson's lease should not be renewed for a variety of reasons. I spoke with over 100 people. There were only about 7 people that did not wish to sign a petition to let you know that Mr. Johnson wasn't welcome.
Nancy, I just have to ask you to please refrain from mentioning...
It's the art studio, so should I refer to it as the art studio? It's
right.
the only...
This is particularly about the user fees in general that we're commenting on now, not on...
Ask if anybody had comments
This
on what
this is in oral communications
sorry.
right now. This is
I'm
user
sorry.
fees and a public hearing on user fees.
Okay, I'm sorry then.
We will have oral communications coming up soon. Thank you. No more public comment? Okay. I'm bringing it back to council now. I'm closing the public hearing. And do I have any more comments from council? So, okay, Councilmember Stone?
Thank you. I think the fees are almost exactly what we saw in the last budget study session, so I'm okay with everything, but I'll let other council members comment.
That was me.
Who that is? Not me. Mm-mm.
Do any of the other council members have anything they'd like to add? No?
You okay?
I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution to approve user fees and charges for 2014-15 as described in Administrative Policy Number 2.
Second.
And that was the second? Okay, please vote. And that passes 4-0. Okay. Okay. Next, we have a public hearing adopting the fiscal year 2014-15 annual operating budget. Do I have a staff report? After this, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. My name is Lori Tinfo, and I'm the City Manager, and I'll be making the presentation tonight, asking you to adopt the 2014-15 operating budget as soon as we get the presentation up on the screen. Let me just start by saying that the work before you in the report is a culmination of the last 3 months of work at the staff level and with the City Council. And it started in April when I brought to you the long-term financial plan, and it's culminating in tonight's request to adopt the attached budget. As you, I'm sure, remember, we started the process with looking at a $1 million shortfall in the general fund. And staff worked very hard to find creative ways of addressing the $1 million shortfall and brought to you a number of recommendations, which are now included in, the ones that you've accepted are included in the budget document. The budget this year is also a new format. It's, we've not shown our information in this fashion prior. It includes a number of different components, including a message from the city manager written to you and to the community about our fiscal circumstance. It also basically captures all of the direction that the council has given to us over the past 3 months. It's designed to provide a comprehensive summary of the city's expected financial activities for the next year. And so it includes a number of provisions, and I'll just keep talking while we're waiting for that to come up. It's okay, Ed. It includes the budget message that I mentioned from me. It includes a general fund budget summary. It includes one-page department budgets to give you sort of in a snapshot what's going on in each department. An all funds budget summary, because even though we spend a lot of our time talking about the general fund, the city does have a number of other funds as well, and together it's all of our funds. A set of fund descriptions, so if you want to know more about a particular fund, you can find out where the money comes from and how it's used. Then one of the recommendations that we made to the council about bridging that $1 million shortfall was to take a loan from one of the wastewater treatment plant funds to provide, help us pay the pension obligation bonds in such a fashion that we smooth the payment over the next 7 years. So there's a section in the document that actually lays that out, explains what the numbers will be with the loan, so that in the future it will be clear in terms of what the plans and expectations are. It also includes the capital budget for the next year, and capital budget is defined as the projects that are going to be either started next year or be underway next year. The master fee schedule that you just adopted is also part of the budget, and then last but not least, I've included a copy of the reserve policy. Yay!
You made it.
Thank you, Ed. It's okay. So the general fund budget that's included in the document represents $26,889,000, and the all funds budget that I touched on represents $71,545,444. So just so that we're clear about what you're taking action on. I mentioned the city manager's budget message, and I also, on these slides at the top, have the page numbers in case you want to follow along or the audience wants to follow along, they know where we are. So the city manager's budget message summarizes all of your direction and also documents the decision-making that has gone on over the past 3 months. The message also includes some themes that have permeated the entire process, themes like pursuing cost recovery, budgeting annual expenses at or below annual revenues, aligning one-time money to meet one-time needs in terms of expenses, and increasing financial transparency, which has really been a theme since I've got here with the council. Some of the decisions captured in the budget message are that pension obligation bond restructuring that I touched on, reducing funding for non-governmental organizations. The council spent quite a bit of time understanding what 4 NGOs provide service to the community and the city's funding of them, and the decision to link funding for 2 of them, the Pacifica Resource Center and the Pacifica Beach Coalition, to the excess ERAF revenues that we spent a lot of time talking about, is documented in this message as well. There are adjustments to fees and charges that we just discussed a few minutes ago, the creation of a parking enterprise fund that you all approved, and redirecting some annual vehicle replacement fund contribution toward some one-time needs. So for the general fund, there is a budget summary, 1 page. It represents the $26,899,000. One of the significant changes here is we moved the revenue and expenses for beach parking into a separate fund, and it was roughly $557,000. And that's now showing up on the all funds page, which I'll point out in just a moment. The budgets by department are included on pages 142 to 148. They're 1-page summaries of the expected activities. They include cost recovery ratios so that we can track how we're doing. Some departments have very low cost recovery ratios, which would be understandable. The police department, for example, they don't necessarily have the opportunity to gather revenue to offset their costs. And then in contrast to that is PB&R, Parks, Recreation, and Parks, Beaches, and Recreation. They have an 80% cost recovery. So I think that helps you see what each department is doing. And then we also touch on staffing levels on each of the pages. So I mentioned that all funds budget. What I've done on this version of it is I've actually taken out the first 2 columns. There used to be 6 columns because we did a look back to last year. So where I'm starting now is where we expect to be at the end of this month, and then our activities for next year, and then where we expect to be a year from now. So that was one of the differences in this version. And then you'll also note that the fire assessment fund We thought we were going to spend that money last year. It didn't come to fruition, and so we plan to spend it this next year, so that's a small change. And then on page 2, here's where you'll see the beach parking fund now. It's just got its own special designation. Fund 35. And again, I've kept all of the notes, all the other documentation that you're well aware of, so that in the future we'll be able to track where we are with all the balances. And as I mentioned, we also have pages that include the description of each of those funds as a reference. So if you want to know what gas tax is and how we're using it, you can refer to this document to help you understand what's going on with the city finances. Then I mentioned the pension obligation bond loan and repayment plan. It clarifies the loan terms and the repayment obligations, and it also documents the decision-making. And here is the document that you've seen before. I tried to add some more narrative to it to make it even more descriptive. I've put Fund 34 in there as the source of the borrowed funds, et cetera. I also did change the interest rate to the 0.05% that we talked about at your last meeting. So this documents and explains how we plan to borrow and how we plan to pay back. And the benefit to the general fund is that it keeps our payments for all of the pension obligation bonds at about $2 million a year. Then the capital budget, and again, this is where we have 2-page descriptions of projects that are going to be happening next year, and they total a little over $18 million. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those since the Public Works Director went into those at the last meeting for you. Fees and charges, the same document that you just approved a few moments ago is included as part of the budget document itself. And then the reserve policy, which was adopted a year ago. It's been unfunded for now, but it's very good practice to have a policy in place so that as we look ahead, we have a plan for how we're going to move that forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Councilmember O'Neill?
I was just going to say is I don't really have any questions because we've been talking about this for quite a while. So all the questions from myself have been answered previously. So.
Councilmember Stone?
Thank you. I just want to thank you for the work that you've done on this. We'll do more, I'm sure, on the other side of this item. But this type of presentation, and it's very easy to read, and it's, I think what we've been wanting here, and with the big charge that we've asked you for is to make the budget easy to understand for somebody that has a, decent level of, decent education level, what have you, but can just pop into it and understand it. And I think the word transparency might be overused a lot and kind of loses some meaning, but that's, if I was to use it in this respect, I would say just easy to understand. And I just wanted to thank you for that. I think this is a really professional, and it's one of the reasons why, and we're happy that you're here. So thank you very much for this. And to all the staff that worked on this, because I know it was not a one-person effort, it was a huge effort. So
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Degree?
Right, the clarity is wonderful, and thank you and staff for all the hard work and extra hours. Thank you.
Did you want to say? Okay, Councilmember O'Neill?
I also wanted to echo my fellow council members, kudos to you and the staff for putting together, but I also want to really acknowledge the documentation as to why decisions were made. As I've been here for a year and a half now, a lot of questions of why in the hell did they do that, okay? And it's kind of nice now that it's actually documented, the thinking behind it, why it was done, and what we expect following councils to do, as part of the obligation of this council. Because, when we start the repayment of those bonds, none of us might be up here. And it's just nice to have documentation as to give why things were done, how they were done, and what is expected of the following council. So I want to thank you for that.
Okay, and I just had a couple questions. You had mentioned cost recovery, and I was just wondering if you could comment on that. I know some were as low as 5% because they don't make a lot of revenue, and then others were 80+%, such as PB&R. So I was just wondering if you can comment, are those healthy numbers, are those acceptable numbers, or is there areas where we can work on enhancing our revenues within some of these entities?
I think that there still are areas that we can look at in terms of increasing the cost recovery ratio. In general, and Wildan has a slide that really shows this well, that basically the services that benefit individuals should have a higher cost recovery attached to it. The services that benefit the more people or the general public, then it's often common to have cost recovery be lower on those. And again, that's a great explanation for why police department does not have high cost recovery. It's because they're not really in the process of serving individuals where we would be able to then have the individual pay the fee. So it's a rule of thumb. So we have some more work to do there.
Well, thank you for that answer. And just another question that I had. Looking forward and looking at this budget and what we've been doing for so many years, we notice this trend that expenditures are rising faster than our revenues. Can you talk about what it's going to take for us to equalize expenditures and revenues? How far away are we? I know it's a kind of philosophical question, but it's something that, we are going to have to address. Is how do we finally get there where we can stop cuts? So do you have any comment about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. Our expenses are growing faster than our revenues. And it will take some fundamental changes to begin to either bring those into alignment to a greater degree, or even maybe have some revenues that are not tied up directly to expenses. I did put in my budget message a small paragraph basically talking about how, looking ahead, there are bigger challenges looming out there. Mm-hmm. And the council's identified economic development as being the avenue that we're going to pursue to help strengthen and hopefully grow the city's revenues. And I think we really have no choice unless we want to become the incredible shrinking city. Because as expenses are growing, if you don't have enough money, just like at home, if you don't have enough money to pay for the expenses, the expenses have to shrink. So my hope and my direction from you all is to look at economic development and to see how we can help those revenues grow. But we have, alluded to by another council member, we have many, many challenges beyond what I'm showing in this budget document that we still don't have a plan for fixing. So there's more work to be done.
Well, like all of the other council members have commented, thank you so much for your clarity and your transparency. And, I have a great deal of confidence in the work that you do, and that brings that brings a level of relief, I think, to all of us. And you've done a beautiful job. Staff's done a beautiful job on putting together this budget, and I look forward to going forward and working with all of you. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Okay, I'm going to now open the public hearing. So if anybody has any comments. Let's see. I actually don't have any cards. Okay, Therese, come on up.
What number is this?
Oh.
Yeah, I have a lot of comments regarding the article that was in the paper too, where one fund, we haven't paid the bill since 2003, and then there's like, I believe, $76,000 missing somewhere. Well, I've been requesting a lot of public records since 2012, and I would look at the ones where no response, okay? I think that's where I'd start looking for the money. And I know that you all work full-time, so you don't have time to go in each department and check to see if these figures are right or what's wrong. I'd be willing to work with Ms. Tinfo on that and violations and everything else, But those are my two concerns. You can't blame it on all the past city council. Yes, you can to a certain extent. But you were here when I asked about the $5 million we spent on consultants.
and all the other waste. And I remember a time where we gave money to the farmer's market. It wasn't much, but was $4,000 a year. You know, to me, that was a waste of money. And of course, the Chamber of Commerce, I was always against the 40,000 there, and then reduced to 10,000. Thank God we're not giving them any more money. And the Resource Center really needs the money because, as I know, that they get matched funds from the county. But the library, I think we're going to have to consolidate some of our services, and since the population is the same as it was 53 years ago when I lived here, I think we can consolidate the planning department with the wastewater plan. I wouldn't touch that wastewater fund if I were you unless I read that lawsuit and make sure that we're meeting up the timelines. That's very serious, or we could be in a lot more trouble. And you can start by selling this building now that I requested for 20 years.
Thank you, Trace. Okay, next, Robin Crawford.
Good evening, Madam Pro Tem, Mayor, and council members. Thank you. I'm Robin Crawford. I'm on the advisory board of the Pacifica Resource Center, and I want to give you a thanks for a thankless job balancing a budget with the help of your staff in a transparent way in a difficult economic season. These are not easy solutions to come up with. So I want to give an unqualified thank you for the thousands of people that you help by supporting the Pacifica Resource Center. The money that you get is leveraged, each dollar into dozens of dollars to ensure that those services are provided. Your support as a city makes a difference in the way we look for other monies for the Pacifica Resource Center. And I want to thank you in an unqualified way on behalf of those people. For myself, however, I want to thank you in a somewhat qualified way, in the same qualified way that you funded the PRC from ERAF funds. And I want to make an observation, and that is this budget, much more transparent, much more usable, does indeed record for future city councils the intent of this council. And by taking the Pacifica Resource Center from the general fund and funding it by ERAF funds, you send a message to those future councils that funding can be dependent on external sources rather than a fundamental and central commitment of the people and the government of Pacifica. So during this budget opportunity, I would like to invite you to reconsider how to fund that. Surely we will be talking about this again in the future. And funding us from ERAF ensures that we will be talking about it with a bit more desperation in our voices in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other public comments?
For the budget.
This is for the budget? Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing that I have none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask comments from City Council. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And again, I just want to thank staff. Gosh, the amount of that we've asked out of the staff. I just want to give kudos to the council as well, because it's quite a project. You know, taking on getting the budget to be as user-friendly as possible from, I see a lot of faces out in the crowd of people, and you've seen the budgets in the past, and to take that, and also, too, when you have these things that are not being communicated well, it's easy to misplace things. And I think that's some of the things that the new city manager has discovered. So we've really asked you to do a lot, and staff, and I think that you've really answered our ask in this, and I know that there's more. I know that you want to do more, and it becomes easier as you have the framework set up. But I just really want to thank you. I want to thank council as well for really having a commitment to that, because it has not only the financial integrity of the city in as a top priority, but also being accountable to the public, and that is really important too, so that we can engage and ask thoughtful members of the public what we actually should do. And part of that is having good information, right? And if you don't have that, it's hard to base your decisions on things. So I want to, in year 3, again, of balancing the budget. This is the 3rd year in a row that we've balanced the budget. It's been, and the city had not balanced the budget for a long time before that, over a decade. And so that is a real big accomplishment, I think, for the council and staff again. And I'm really happy and proud of that. And I'd like to make a motion too when the time is right. If you guys want to make some comments first, and I'll be happy to give up the floor right now.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
I was just going to either make a motion or second the motion, so if Lynn wants to make the motion, I'll second it.
Is that okay, Sue? Okay. I'll just move that we adopt a resolution adopting the 2014-15 annual operating budget presented to the City Council tonight with a general fund appropriation of $26,889,000 and all funds appropriation of $71,745,444.
Councilmember O'Neill?
And my sheet says 71,545.
You're right.
Do you want me to read the whole thing again? Can I say what he said? What would you like me to say?
Why don't you just say correction of
All right.
1 million?
All right, I'll correct the all funds total of $71,745,444.
No, 545,000.
Am I saying the wrong thing? Am I going dyslexic on this? I do have a little bit of a problem there. Okay, 71,545,444. Excuse me. I get my P's and my D's and all that mixed up too. So.
Okay, so, well, I second that one.
Please vote. And that passes 4-0. Okay, and that brings us to council communications. Would anyone like to start? Councilmember Stone.
Okay, I'm glad we had PBNR week, and Mike Perez was up here talking about all the things that he does, but I just wanted to remind again about 4th of July coming up, because we're not going to have a meeting before that happens. So I hope everyone can make it out to that. It starts at 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and it's at Frontierland Park on the 4th of July. Should be an always amazing event. And then I had 3 committee meetings in the last 2 weeks canceled. And I don't know if people are getting summer fever and they're not showing up or what have you, but 3 meetings were canceled, so not a lot of meetings on my council liaison work to report back, but I'm sure there'll be more next time.
Thank you. Councilmember Degree?
We have a general plan presentation by staff this Saturday in this building from 11 to 1, and your comments on the general plan are due. The deadline is July 10th, so that's coming quickly, and you can find the general plan online on our website or at the library, hard copy. A couple meetings this week also. Tomorrow, the economic development meeting is in the police station at 6 p.m. Isn't it tomorrow? Am I ahead of
No,
myself?
it's is it the first or second Thursday?
Tuesday.
Second Tuesday.
Oh, I guess I'm eager.
That was one of the ones that was canceled this month, Sue.
One of the ones I was canceled, and I just put it in. Well, anyway, we're working on the idea of having more events in town, so I'm excited about that. So obviously, I was going to show up. Good thing I mentioned it.
Be the only one. Be canceled.
So and the 25th is Wednesday, and that is the Open Space Parkland meeting. We will have a report from GGNRA, but also we're working on our work plan and close to prioritizing. So, and that's in PBNR at 6 p.m.
Okay, Councilmember O'Neill.
I met with some people regarding the dog park, some neighbors. I also attended, and Mayor Nyhart and Councilmember Degree were also at the North Coast County Water District, received an award for transparency for special districts. And I see Director Joshua Cosgrove is in the audience. Congratulations, Water Department and Mr. Cosgrove. I also attended the GPU meeting, General Plan Update meeting last Tuesday or Wednesday. It's in the past, so it doesn't make much difference. But there is a new one, as Councilmember DeGree said, coming up this Saturday at 11 o'clock, I think, here at the council chambers. So it's also a comment period on the EIR for the general plan, as well as the general plan update. And that's it.
Okay, and I attended a countywide legislative committee meeting, and they talked about AB 418, which is a countywide stormwater initiative that is going to be put on hold. They were considering putting it on the ballot this November, but they're trying to garner some more assembly support. But what they did talk about was AB 2403, which clarifies the definition of water to include stormwater runoff, and this recognizes that water comes from a variety of sources, so it's very important for stormwater management going forward. They also commented on this year's budget plan and the long-term plan, and one of the more interesting aspects was that 40% of the long-term plan is looking at ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, so they're really focusing on this issue in the years to come, and that shows an important change in direction. I also attended a Jackie Spear event where she commented on many, many issues, veterans issues and affordable housing, talked about what's going on in Iraq, and just very informative, and a lot of issues that are really important to us in Pacifica as well as across the state. So that was a very interesting meeting. And that's about it. So now that brings us to oral communications. Here, anyone who would like to speak on items not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to do so. So if you haven't already done so, please fill out a yellow card in the back of the room. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. At 2 minutes, you will hear a warning, and you will be given an additional minute. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with oral communications, and our first speaker is Nancy Bailey. Thank you, Nancy, for being patient.
Oh, thank you. I would like to apologize to council for my political ignorance. I don't know how this thing works.
No, you're great.
What we wanted to do, basically, is let the council, and particularly the subcommittee, know that the commercial renter in the Sanchez Art Center, the lease should not be renewed for a variety of reasons. One of the main factors, you're talking about budget. You have over 1,000 square feet at the end of your that's renting for less than $100 a square foot. 2 years ago, I looked and it was $13 to $24 for a comparable commercial space. Doesn't it make more sense? I drove past the gentleman that just talked about his center one day this weekend, and there were people lined up around the block. Wouldn't it make more sense to give them more space? There's just no reason that he should be renewed, particularly for the length of time, considering that no one else in the center is allowed to stay beyond 6 years. There were people in the center that did not wish to sign the petition because it was politically not correct. I can tell you that the nicest thing that Mr. Johnson, that the commercial renter was called was a jerk. I won't repeat any of the other language. But I would like to give this folder to the subcommittee. It contains a petition that we passed around that has a total of 117 signatures. It also contains several letters that different people asked that I give at this presentation. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Nancy. And they'll take the petitions, our city clerk. Okay, next up is Roger Medler.
Yes, hi. Anyway, I've always asked myself, wanted to ask you, do you ever wash this thing? Anyway, the letter from Jerry Hill I gave to you, Karen, I don't really even recall giving it to you, but the person in question, it says the person in question has a business license which makes the business legal. This is not true. The building needs to comply to all administrative codes. I gave you this letter in good faith, hoping you would help me, and you turned against me. I lost all respect for you. Sorry. Anyway, you took my quality of life for 29 years, then you filed they filed a restraining order against me in order to shut me up and possibly get me to move. So anyway, I'd like to let the public know when you go to talk to any city officials or police, take somebody with you, because look what happened to me in the restraining order. So I've sent you all a package, and I got no reply, no phone call or email. At the Democratic meeting, it says it's good business to return phone calls and emails, and not one of you did. So that's pretty disgusting. I thought you were here to serve the public, and I guess the public doesn't include me. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, Therese Dyer.
I wasn't going to speak on this, but I'd just like to clarify it a little bit, what Roger just said. The letter that you received from Roger regarding Jerry Hill, business license that he sent to Roger, well, I'm kind of instrumental in that because I found so many violations in various departments in the city, and the administrative codes were so outdated that he did help me get the proper ones from the state, okay? The fact that a permit was issued after the job was done resulted in my $21,000 losing money putting on a new roof. And I mean, I went to court too, but the first time I let the city out of it and sued the contractor, the judge could have awarded me right then and there because he perjured himself. I did have a warranty, and he said I didn't. And then I was never notified of a further meeting. So much for our Justice Department. Then I took the city of Pacifica. Well, let me tell you something. The judge kept all my information for 90 days, never signed it, never told me why she came to the decision she did. All she said was that the party didn't know me, which was the city, obviously. I'd like to know why, and I'm going to continue following that up with the presiding judge. However, this was Susan Greenberg, and I think she was up for election. I don't know if she got it or not, but I wouldn't vote for her. Anyway, I said pretty much what I wanted to do under our budget session. How can you say we've balanced the budget for the last 3 years, and then in the paper I'm reading we're $4 million deficit? That doesn't make sense. So remember when your goal-setting thing happened at the police department and you were going to take $3,000 salary? Are you doing that? I don't think so. So your word is really not too good. Now, the other thing I want to bring up is what's going to happen to Sharp Park here. We bought all those lampposts now. Are they laying in some warehouse getting rusty like this building? This is a disgrace. Did you see all the mold on the outside when you walk in here? And all the windows are corroded? I mean, whose responsibility is to take care of our public buildings? You want to beautify the city? You can start right here.
Thank you. Robin Crawford. Did he? Oh, he left. Okay. I have no more cards for council communications. So, or oral communications, I'm sorry. Okay, so we will then move on to considerations. So that's item 11. Adoption of an ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacifica amending Article 1, Section 02, 04, 05, 06, and 08 to Title 5, Chapter 16 of the Pacifica Municipal Code concerning intrusion detection and robbery alarm systems. Do I have a staff report?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I'm Captain Joe Spanheimer with the Police Department, and I will be speaking regarding the adoption of an amendment on the intrusion detection and robbery alarm systems. The majority of the language in that ordinance was adopted on or before 1983, and the purpose of this amendment is to update the language in the amendment, such as job titles and department names. For example, we no longer have a Director of Public Safety, it's the Police Chief. We no longer have a Department of Public Safety, it's either the Police Department or the Fire Department. Also, we need to outline the need for the annual renewal fee, which we have. And third, set the correct number of false alarms upon which a service fee may be charged. And then finally, what we did was place definitions within the ordinance in alphabetical order. The fiscal impact of the amendment to the ordinance is increased annual revenue by approximately $6,500, and that amount is based upon the number of police responses to a second false alarm report. And if the council has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from council? I just had a couple. I was wondering if you could comment on what are the false alarms usually caused from? Are they animals or people or mistakes that people make when they're setting their alarms?
The false alarms are caused through a variety of means. It could be weather, it could be animals, could be mechanical difficulties with the system itself. So it's a variety of different things.
Okay, thank you. And one other question I had, and I was wondering why this wasn't part of our user fee. It's just because, why wouldn't it set it in there?
Well, I know the fees were enacted with, I think, the fee study last fiscal year, and I know we sent notices out at the beginning of this fiscal year. In fact, notices were sent out to alarm permit holders on June 17th of 2013 with the new fees, including the second response fee.
Okay, great, thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
I don't know if this might be directed at the city attorney, but if you look at the resolution, I'm not trying to be anal, but it says the foregoing ordinance was introduced on June 23rd, 2014, passed and adopted at a regular meeting on the 9th day of June, 2014.
Oh.
So this was actually introduced today, but passed the last meeting?
No, that needs to be corrected. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks, Mike. That's good. Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, and seeing that I have no comments from the public, I'll bring it back to council. Any?
Open the public hearing and then close it.
Yeah, it's on the public hearing. Consideration.
On my agenda. Just open the public comment. Or it's fine. You're probably fine.
So I'm closing public comment, bringing it back to council.
Resolution?
Okay, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a, I want to adopt adoption of an ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacifica amending Article 1, Section 02, 04, 05, 06, and 08 to Title 5, Chapter 16 of the Pacifica Municipal Code concerning intrusion detection, robbery, or alarm systems. Move that the ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacifica amending Article 1, Section 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8 to Title 5, Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code concerning intrusion detection, robbery, alarm systems be read by title only, and that further reading be waived. Move introduction of the ordinance as amended with the dates.
Second.
Do you want, okay, Councilmember Degree?
Second.
Second. Please vote. And that passes 4-0. And with that, I adjourn the meeting.
Okay, cool. You have a